Prosecutions for so-called hate posts on social media have rocketed in the past decade, from just one conviction in 2015 to 44 last year. The law says stirring up racial hatred is a crime under the Public Order Act, but critics argue it's now being used far too widely, clamping down on free speech. It follows the case of Lucy Connolly, jailed for a year over a single racist tweet after the Southport killings. She's now free, and politicians, including Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, say Parliament must urgently review the law. I am joined now by barrister and writer Steven Barrett. Welcome to the show. Thank you. So, Steven, Lucy Connolly, she got out this week and she gave an interview to The Telegraph and says that she's essentially a political prisoner.
Yes, and you can fully understand her feeling that. I think we have to recognise that we have a particularly, and this is a personal opinion of mine, so I don't want to embarrass GB News, but we have a particularly weak Prime Minister, and I think he had a reaction to a violent disorder.
There are some people on GB News who might agree with you.
Oh, well, that's very welcome, but I think he had a very, I'm going to say hysterical reaction to a violent disorder that I largely think he created, because having talked to the granddad of a victim and some other people in Southport, there's a very great feeling in Southport that him spending 19 seconds there laying a plastic wreath and then running back to a party with Z-list celebrities really didn't help. And you see a politician...
That's the difference between that and actually exacerbating a situation, right? He might not have made it better, like his job, some would argue that would be his job, but you can understand the concerns. There were people out there on the streets and him doing what he thought was necessary. Now, obviously, people disagree with that, what his actions were, what his words were. Well,
it followed on from that. So he in his 19-second visit was heckled. And so I think that does cause some of the anger and resentment. And I think across the political spectrum, you get gifted politicians. And it's not party-specific ever. Obama is a very gifted, and Tony Blair, very gifted, emotionally intelligent people. Boris Johnson would have gone and hugged all the mums of all the victims. He would have gone. You know, that's what would have happened. And there would have been a much better understanding, because we're only humans, we have an emotional reaction.
People are reacting to that horror.
Yes, of course they are. And of course, many people were deeply upset at what happened to those poor, innocent girls. The Prime Minister, with his hysterical reaction, managed to turn the entire narrative into imprisoning a mum in Hertfordshire. I mean, all of the attention has been taken off those girls and those victims, when many of us feel deep, heartfelt, emotional outpourings for them. And then what irritates me most about Southport is the heroes of it never get enough attention at all. There was a gentleman who rented an office opposite the dance studio who ended up getting stabbed in the leg because he did what any human being would do and tried to protect those children, protect those girls. The marvellous lady who ran the dance class, whose life has been shattered by this, who had to go into very serious medical treatment. These people have not become household names. They haven't done, again, what I think any politician with emotional intelligence would do, which is, I mean, I'd give him a knighthood and her a damehood. What are they for, if not for honouring people who will self-sacrifice in defence of our children? You know, and so...
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade, and in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
the Prime Minister has focused on this. It's quite right for Lucy Connolly to call him out. I think many of us on the legal side are quite angry that she pled guilty. I think I have a lot... Because, you know, lawyers obsess about words, and I think I've tried to explain this to the public, and I'll carry on trying to explain this to the public, but we can obsess about, like, one word at a time. But the words I obsess about with Lucy Connolly are, if I care.
Yeah.
Because that really seems to indicate that she's not inciting violence.
Because it should be said, the American system for this kind of law is that you have to prove that you meant to incite violence and prove that it actually did incite violence.
Yes.
And you could argue that neither of those, in this case, conditions were met.
I think the prosecution would never be able to establish it on an American standard. I question whether they could on a British standard. I caveat that by saying I'm not a criminal lawyer, but again, the act of interpreting words is universal to all lawyers. I sort of push back against this siloing of lawyers.
So is the problem, do you think, the law itself, then?
The law was flabbily drafted. The problem, I think, was that she was denied bail. I think the simple reality of being denied bail is that you are in an incredibly grim space, without a window, probably, with a little metal lavatory with no wash basin, no sink, and a bed that's designed that you can't take anything off it to damage the room yourself or do any harm. And then you're left without any stimulus for hours and hours and hours. And then you have a government-paid-for lawyer who comes and advises you. And I got into this discussion with not all criminal lawyers hate me, Josh, but I got into this with a retired criminal solicitor who I like very much. But I have a very clear line, because I'm not a criminal solicitor, so I had to worry a lot about being sued if I got things wrong. Okay? My house is on the line if I make a mistake. So if a client comes to me and says, should I sue X over, £5 million, and I know my insurance is £2.5 million, I'm now worried about my house. And they come to me and I will advise them, and I'll say, well, this is the strength of your case on its merits, and I might give a percentage-based assessment. I'd never give a 100% assessment. That would be insane. I don't actually know any commercial barrister who gives over 80, because you've got to have fat. And the one thing, if the client looks you in the eye and says, should I sue, you have to look them right back and say, that is entirely your decision. That is not for me.
But in this case, the incentives aren't there in that way.
No, the incentives all go the other way, and I do worry that the criminal solicitors... Because this criminal solicitor was honest. He was like, well, actually, we probably would, tell them you probably should plead guilty. And that is crossing a line between being an expert giving advice and telling someone what to do. And I don't know the specifics of Lucy's case, but I would worry at the pressures that were grinding down on her at that time.
I mean, there's been a marked increase, about 58%, since COVID, since lockdowns. So we seem to be moving in the wrong direction. Whether this country has become 58% more racist or whether the law is being misapplied, that's the other issue. Anyway, thank you very much, Barrister Steven Barrett.